Search no more. There's no need to spend over $1,000 just for a good full-frame lens. The Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8 is one of the best value lenses that you can have without having to sell a kidney. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, I'm Mike, nurse, photographer, and videographer, and I'm going to approach this review with a hobbyist perspective. Before we go on any further, I just want to let you know that the lens in my hands is not the Zeiss 55mm f1.8. This is a placeholder. I did have the lens, though it is not in my position currently, so the rest of the video will incorporate the samples of pictures and photos that I have taken with that lens. But I still have video footage and photo samples that I can share with you in this review. So generally, no matter what camera system, I've gravitated towards a 50mm lens. And Sony does sell a 50mm f1.8. However, despite the price, the autofocus is still kind of slow and it's a little bit noisy as well. And both of those things are not a concern when it comes to the Zeiss 55mm lens. I've used the Zeiss lens for portrait photography, for thumbnails for this channel, for weddings, and even personal vlogs. And I would have to say that it's very sharp at f1.8. Tendency is most lenses, when they're open all the way up to f1.8, it tends to be like sharp in the center or, towards the center, and then soft towards the edges. However, with this lens, you can still get a good sharp edge on your subject, even if you're shooting at f1.8. And of course, just like most lenses, if you stop down to like f2.8, f4, f5.6, the image will start to look sharper. What are some pros to this lens? Well, it's fast in its autofocus, it's sharp in its imagery, just as I was just speaking to you, and the bokeh. And along with those qualities and excellent performances, the other thing about it is that it's lightweight to carry. One of the selling points, or at least one of the big differences between DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, is that they come in a smaller body. This is a Sony a6400 or Alpha 6400, and this compared to a Canon 80D, this is much smaller. But when we start going to full frame cameras like the Sony a7S III that I have right in front of me, those bodies tend to be a lot bigger. And then of course, with bigger full frame cameras, you also have bigger full frame lenses. In my hand, this is the Sigma 30mm f1.4, and this is very comparable to the Zeiss 55mm f1.8, at least when it comes to size and weight. This is a comparable size. This is nice and easy to hold and carry. Even more so if you have a bigger Sony full frame body, it's still gonna be okay. It's not gonna be too heavy. Once we get into the category of bigger prime lenses like the Sony 50mm f1.2 G Master, yes, that's an excellent lens, but it's a heavy thing to carry. You really need that extra hand of support just to keep the lens stable and keep this wrist from breaking. Okay, that was an exaggeration, but still, the size of the Zeiss lens is much easier for you to just carry around, especially if you're going on a day trip, if you're going for travel, or even if you're just having like an easy party that you just want to bring your camera along to. Because Lord knows people want you to bring your camera and take free pictures for them. And speaking of full frame cameras and crop sensor cameras, do note that if you have a camera body like this, you can still buy the Sony 55mm f1.8. You see, when you put a full frame lens onto a crop sensor body, this is a crop sensor body, you have to multiply the focal length of the camera lens, like the Zeiss 55mm, times 1.6. Hey Siri, what's 55 times 1.6?
It's 88.
So 88 millimeters. Maybe you're like me and you got a Sony full frame camera and you got a crop sensor camera. So on the crop sensor camera, that 88mm, you can pretty much take good portraits or B-roll. And you can also do the same with the full frame camera. You just have a lot more room to work with since it'll stick to its true 55mm focal length. Okay, the downside to this lens. If you're doing video and you like to do the manual focusing, it's a little bit tricky. Yes, the lens performs well when it comes to autofocus, but when you go with manual focus, yeah, that's a different story. The lens uses a system called focus by wire. Back in the old days, when you had a lens and you focus manually, it has a consistent focus. So far, near, far, near, near, far, near, far. The speed and also the distance of which you rotate for the manual focus is pretty consistent. And the Zeiss lens and how you manually focus is very inconsistent when it comes to how fast you speed this ring. The focus may travel at a few feet at a time or a few meters at a time, or it will jump several feet or several meters at a time. So when I use the lens in manual focus, I slowly turned my focus ring, just so I wouldn't blow past my subject unintentionally. Another thing, but also not a big deal, is that it doesn't have any custom buttons. Okay, so it is produced by Zeiss, and if you look here at a Sony lens, this is a Sony 85mm lens. It comes with a custom button. I don't really use it that much, but you could use it for things like eye autofocus. And then it also has an autofocus manual focus switch. Again, not the biggest deal, it just takes maybe like a few seconds for me just to go into my function menu, turn the thing to manual focus. My camera already has eye focus enabled, so no big deal. Okay, so who's this lens for? It's for the parent shooting portraits of their family, especially things at a distance, getting that good 55mm range, getting some reach on that as compared to a normal 35mm lens. This is also for the street photographer or someone who likes to travel and just document things from afar without getting in people's faces. And it's also for the person who wants to travel light, yet not have to sacrifice on the quality of the image. And I have to say the Zeiss is really the best value. It nails the bokeh. It has the f1.8, so you got good low light performance. You got that extra stop of light. The Zeiss lens doesn't have to break your back when you carry it, and nor does it have to break your wallet for when you decide that you're gonna get one. If it's for you, of course, no pressure. Buying the lens brand new, especially with the tax, it's gonna hover around $1,000. However, I was able to go on eBay and buy one for around $600, and I made sure that when I did make that purchase, that the seller had a refund policy, at least like 30 days or something. But even eBay says that if something should go wrong with the product, you still are able to claim that refund. So if you're gonna shop there, make sure you read the descriptions, make sure nothing's wrong with the lens. And other than that, I had an overall good experience buying a lens used from eBay. It's a good, lightweight, nifty 50. And it's one that you will not be upset with if you put it in your camera kit. You can click over here to see my review of the 35mm f1.8. Otherwise, I got videos over here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.